Imagine sitting on your couch, drinking a cold Pepsi, and watching a cool commercial. At the very end, it tells you, if you collect this many points, we'll give you a real military fighter jet. What do? You laugh it off and move on, right? Well, today's story is about a 21-year-old college student who absolutely did not laugh. Instead, he pulled out his calculator and said, "Legally, that jet belongs to me, and Pepsi is going to pay up." It all started back in the 90s, when the global beverage market wasn't just a business, it was a literal war zone known as the Cola Wars. Coca-Cola was the traditional king, loved by everyone. Pepsi, desperate to steal the crown, wanted to look like the edgy, youthful cool kid on the block. Every single marketing campaign they launched was designed to make Coca-Cola look like a boring drink for grandparents. In 1996, the marketing geniuses at Pepsi thought they found the ultimate silver bullet. They launched a massive loyalty program called Pepsi Stuff. The concept was brilliant in its simplicity. You buy Pepsi, you get points printed on the cans, you collect them, and you trade them in for free prizes. The prizes were trendy 90s gear, like sunglasses for 175 points, or a leather jacket for 1,450 points. It was an instant hit, and teenagers across America were hoarding Pepsi cans like digital currency. But then, the advertising agency got a little too creative. They made a flashy commercial featuring a cool kid wearing a Pepsi leather jacket, walking out of his house. But instead of riding a school bus, he flies a massive, multi-million-dollar military fighter jet, an AV-8 Harrier capable of vertical takeoff, and lands it right in the school courtyard, blowing away all the teachers' papers. The screen flashes with a giant, bold subtitle, AV-8 Harrier jet, 7 million Pepsi points. The commercial ends with the kid winking and saying, "Sure beats the bus." The executives at Pepsi laughed their heads off in the boardroom. To them, it was an obvious, sarcastic joke. Who in their right mind would think a soda company was actually giving away a tactical military weapon? Well, they completely underestimated a business student named John Leonard. John Leonard had an analytical mind that saw the world through numbers and legal fine print. He sat down and did the math. To get 7 million points just by drinking soda, you would have to consume roughly 190 cans of Pepsi every single day for 100 years. Long before you hit that goal, your kidneys would completely give up. But John didn't stop there. He requested the official Pepsi Stuff order form and read the tiny text at the bottom. And right there, he found the corporate blunder of the century. The rule stated that if a consumer already had at least 15 points from real cans, they could buy any remaining points they needed directly from Pepsi for just 10 cents per point. Pepsi put this rule in so people who were just short of a jacket could easily buy the rest with a check. They never expected someone to apply this to the fighter jet. John's eyes widened as he calculated the new numbers. 7 million points multiplied by 10 cents equals exactly $700,000. At the time, a real Harrier jet was valued by the U.S. military at roughly $33 million. This meant that because of a stupidly written rule, Pepsi was accidentally selling a $33 million jet for a massive 98% discount. All he needed was $700,000. Since John was a broke college student, he went out and convinced 5 wealthy investors to back his plan. He showed them the loophole, and they wrote the checks. John collected 15 real points, filled out the form, wrote, "1 Harrier jet." In the item column, attached a certified check for exactly $700,008.50, and mailed it to Pepsi headquarters. He literally sat back on his couch, ate some snacks, and waited for the mailman to deliver a military weapon to his backyard. When the mailroom at Pepsi opened John's package, the secretary saw the $700,000 check and almost had a heart attack. The boardroom, that was filled with laughter a few weeks ago instantly turned into a house of panic. The legal department was dragged in, screaming, "What kind of mess did you guys just make?" At first, Pepsi tried to handle it with corporate arrogance. They sent the check back with a few coupons for free soda and basically said, "Chill out, bro. It was just a TV joke. Don't take it seriously." But John said, "Joke? It's your form, your rules. Either give me my jet or I'll see you in court." Pepsi realized John was completely serious, so they made a preemptive strike and sued him first in a New York federal court, asking a judge to declare that they owed him nothing. The media caught wind of the story, and it became a global sensation. The world was split. Half the world thought John was a genius folk hero sticking it to a billion-dollar company, and the other half thought he was just a greedy opportunist. The legal battle, known as Leonard versus PepsiCo Incorporated, lasted for over 3 years. John's lawyers argued that Pepsi made an official offer on TV, and by fulfilling the exact conditions, a binding contract was formed. They even pointed out that since the military sells demilitarized versions of these jets to civilians, Pepsi had no excuse. Pepsi's defense was hilarious but based on common sense. They argued that no reasonable person could look at that ad and think it was real. They pointed out that the jet didn't even have a seatbelt for a passenger, and flying it to a school would violate dozens of federal laws. Finally, they said, "The kid in the commercial is an improbable pilot who could barely be trusted with his parents' car keys, let alone a Marine Corps jet." In 1999, the federal judge finally handed down the verdict and ruled entirely in favor of Pepsi. She declared that advertisements are not legally binding contracts, and the commercial was clearly a joke that no reasonable person should believe. John Leonard didn't get his fighter jet, and his investors got their money back. To make sure this never happened again, Pepsi updated the commercial and changed the prize from 7 million points to 700 million points, making it officially impossible. But at the end of the day, who actually won this war? Pepsi won the court case, but from a marketing perspective, this stupid blunder became the best thing that ever happened to them. They spent millions on traditional ads that year, but nothing generated more hype than John Leonard's stunt. For 3 solid years, the name, Pepsi, was at the top of the global news cycle entirely for free. They looked wild, chaotic, and exciting, which completely attracted the younger generation and left Coca-Cola in the dust. The campaign succeeded, not because it went according to plan, but because it went horribly, wonderfully, and stupidly wrong. Pepsi learned the hard way that if you put a giant promise in your commercial, someone out there will actually try to claim it. But while Pepsi spent millions trying to escape their legal blunder, our next company did the exact opposite. Get ready, because we are moving to a fast food giant that turned a seemingly impossible publicity stunt into one of the most brilliant marketing triumphs in history. Now, you'd think that after the whole Pepsi jet disaster in 1996, other big corporations would look at that and say, "Okay, let's never do anything that's stupid again." But no. In that exact same year, 1996, the marketing team at Taco Bell looked at Pepsi and said, "Hold my beer." Except they didn't just target a college student. They decided to troll the entire United States of America. Imagine waking up on April Fool's Day, grabbing a cup of coffee, opening the morning newspaper, and seeing a massive, full-page announcement that reads, "Taco Bell has purchased the Liberty Bell to help reduce the national debt." Now, for those who don't know, the Liberty Bell is basically one of the most sacred, untouched historical treasures in America. It's a global symbol of freedom. It's like British Airways buying Big Ben, or a French fast food chain claiming they just bought the Eiffel Tower. It sounds like a total, ridiculous joke, right? Well, Taco Bell actually did this. And oh boy, they almost caused a national riot. Back in the 90s, Taco Bell was desperate to stand out. They didn't want to be just another boring fast food joint selling cheap tacos. They wanted to be edgy and controversial. So, on April Fool's Day, they bought full-page ads in 6 of the biggest newspapers in America, including the New York Times and the Washington Post. The ad looked 100% official. It stated that because the United States government was drowning in national debt, Taco Bell had generously stepped up to adopt the Liberty Bell. And from now on, it was officially renamed the Taco Liberty Bell. The corporate executives at Taco Bell were probably high-fiving each other in the office, thinking, "Man, we are so funny!" But they completely underestimated one tiny detail: how furiously defensive people get over their history. Within minutes of the newspapers hitting the stands, the corporate prank backfired into absolute chaos. People went completely ballistic. Thousands of angry citizens flooded the phone lines of the National Park Service in Philadelphia. Callers were literally screaming into their phones, demanding to know why a fast food chain was allowed to slap its logo on a national treasure. The lines were so jammed that government offices couldn't function. The panic spread so fast that it literally reached the White House. During a press briefing, reporters actually asked the White House press secretary about the sale. He decided to play along with the joke and said, "Well, we are also selling the Lincoln Memorial to Ford Motor Company, and it's going to be renamed the Lincoln Mercury Memorial." But guess what? The public did not find it funny at all. Talk radio shows were flooded with people who were dead serious about boycotting Taco Bell forever. A few hours later, after realizing things were getting a bit dangerous, Taco Bell finally released a statement admitting it was all a giant April Fool's prank. To smooth things over, they even donated $50,000 to help preserve the actual monument. But here is where the absolute marketing genius comes in. Printing those newspaper ads cost Taco Bell about $300,000. In return, they generated over $25 million worth of completely free media coverage. Every single major news channel on Earth was broadcasting the name, Taco Bell, for 24 hours straight. Their restaurants were packed, their drive-thrus had miles of lines, and their sales for that exact week skyrocketed by millions of dollars. It was a marketing strategy that was completely absurd, highly offensive to some, and stupidly successful. They literally hijacked American history for a day, made millions of people furious, and walked away with a massive fortune. The creator of Taco Bell proved that success isn't just about the food, but how you package a culture for the masses. But our next entrepreneur took this exact philosophy to a hilariously extreme level. Get ready, because we are moving from fast food empires to one of the most bizarre phenomena in business history, where a man became a multimillionaire not by selling a secret recipe, but by literally selling ordinary rocks as pets. So, Taco Bell managed to make millions of dollars by practically renting out a piece of American history for a single day. Pretty wild, right? But at least, at the end of the day, people got a good laugh and some cheap tacos. But what if I told you that in the 1970s, a guy managed to become an overnight multi-millionaire by selling absolutely nothing? No food, no digital points, no coupons. Just a literal rock. A rock he picked up from a beach for free, put inside a cardboard box, and sold to millions of educated people as a domesticated pet. If you think the Pepsi Jet guy was crazy, wait until you see how this man used pure human psychology to pull off the ultimate corporate hustle. But hey, as insane as this rock story is, it is nothing compared to our final case at the end of this video. Trust me, the last story involves a corporate blunder so massive that it literally caused a nationwide blackout and a political scandal. You do not want to miss that one. But first, let's talk about Gary Dahl and his $1 million stones. The year was 1975. A guy named Gary Dahl, who worked as a freelance copywriter in California, was sitting in a local bar, having a drink with his friends. His friends were all complaining about their pets. One guy was crying about his dog chewing up his expensive couch. Another was complaining about having to clean the cat's litter box every single day. A third guy was stressed about his expensive tropical fish dying from a weird disease. Gary, who had a dark and sarcastic sense of humor, looked at them, smiled, and said, "You guys have it all wrong. That's why I have a pet rock. It's the perfect pet. It doesn't need to be fed. It doesn't need to be walked. It doesn't shed fur. It won't die. And it is completely obedient." Everyone at the bar laughed. It was a classic witty joke. But when Gary went home that night, the joke stayed in his head. As a marketing and advertising guy, he realized something profound about human nature. People in the 70s were exhausted. The Vietnam War had just ended, the economy was terrible, and the news was filled with depression. People desperately needed a laugh. They needed something stupid, harmless, and funny to spend a few dollars on. Gary decided to take his joke and turn it into a real commercial product. Now, Gary knew that he couldn't just walk up to people, hand them a stone from the dirt, and ask for money. That would make him look like a crazy person. The secret to this entire business model was the packaging and the marketing execution. Gary went to a local construction supplier and bought thousands of ordinary, smooth gray stones imported from a beach in Mexico. Each stone cost him less than 1 single cent. Then, he designed a custom cardboard box. The box looked exactly like a professional, high-end pet carrier cage. It even had air holes cut out on the sides, so the rock could breathe during shipping. Inside the box, the rock sat comfortably on a bed of softwood shavings, looking like a royal prince. But the real masterpiece of the product, the thing that actually made people open their wallets, was a 32-page official instruction manual that Gary wrote himself. The book was titled, "The Care and Training of Your Pet Rock." It was a masterpiece of pure, unadulterated sarcasm. The manual explained in deep, scientific detail how to properly take care of your new stone. It gave instructions on how to make the rock sit, stay, and roll over, which, obviously, required a bit of human assistance. It even warned owners that while a pet rock is generally easy to train, the command, "Come here," is almost impossible for a stone to learn, so you shouldn't get frustrated. Gary took his creation to a major gift show in New York, and the store owners went crazy for it. By Christmas of 1975, the pet rock became the biggest viral phenomenon in American history. It was the 1970s equivalent of a viral TikTok trend. Gary was invited onto The Tonight Show. Newspapers were writing front-page articles about it, and every single person in America wanted to buy one as a gag gift for their friends. Each pet rock sold for $3.95. Remember, the rock itself cost Gary less than a cent, and the cardboard box and booklet cost less than 30 cents to print. This meant Gary was making an insane, massive profit margin on every single sale. In just 6 short months, Gary Dahl sold over 1.5 million pet rocks. He walked away with a net profit of over $15 million in today's money, completely changing his life forever. He went from a broke copywriter to buying a massive mansion and driving a luxury Mercedes, all because he convinced the world to buy ordinary dirt. The craze eventually died down after a year, because obviously, you can't sell people a second rock once the joke is over. But Gary Dahl proved to the entire business world that with the right packaging and a brilliant understanding of human psychology, you can literally sell nothing and become a millionaire. But as brilliant as Gary was, his little rock scheme looks like a child's game compared to our final case. Get ready, because the last story we are about to cover is one of the most audacious marketing gambles in corporate history. where a company completely manipulated human psychology to make millions of people fall in love with a brand. Our final story is about a company that had a product everyone hated, a budget that was completely empty, and a marketing plan that involved literally digging through public garbage cans. This is the story of how Red Bull hijacked the streets of London. The year was 1987. An Austrian marketing executive named Dietrich Mateschitz decided to launch a brand new drink called Red Bull. Now, you have to understand that back in the late 80s, the concept of an energy drink did not exist in Europe. People drank coffee, tea, or soda. When Red Bull did their initial taste tests with real consumers, the results were an absolute psychological disaster. People literally said the drink tasted medicinal, it was way too sweet, it was syrupy, and the chemical aftertaste was borderline disgusting. On top of that, it was twice as expensive as a regular can of Coca-Cola. Every single traditional marketing textbook would tell you to shut down the project immediately. But Dietrich was a stubborn genius. He knew that if he used traditional TV commercials or billboard advertisements, Red Bull would die a quiet death. He didn't have the money to compete with Coke or Pepsi anyway. He needed a strategy that was cheap, completely unconventional, and slightly chaotic. So, he looked at his marketing team and came up with a plan so absurd it sounded like a joke. "We are going to put our product inside the trash." Dietrich ordered his team to collect hundreds of thousands of empty, crushed Red Bull cans straight from their manufacturing plant. Then, under the cover of darkness, they drove around the busiest, trendiest nightlife districts in London. They targeted the absolute hotspots of the youth culture, the most exclusive nightclubs, popular bars, crowded concert venues, and busy university campuses. And what did they do with these empty cans? They didn't hand them out. They stuffed them into every single public trash can they could find. They piled them up so high that the empty Red Bull cans were literally overflowing onto the sidewalks. They even convinced club bangers and nightclub staff to leave empty Red Bull cans sitting on top of the bars and VIP tables. When the sun came up the next morning, the citizens of London woke up to a bizarre sight. No matter where they went, whether they were walking to a subway station, sitting outside a cafe, or waiting in line for a club, every single garbage can was completely filled with these strange, bright blue and silver cans. This triggered a massive, unavoidable psychological phenomenon in human nature known as FOMO, the fear of missing out. People looked at the overflowing trash cans and thought to themselves, "Wait a minute. What on earth is this new drink? If the garbage is completely full of it, that means thousands of cool people were drinking it last night while I was sleeping. Am I living under a rock? Why haven't I tried this yet?" It created the perfect illusion of popularity. Red Bull didn't spend millions of dollars telling people their drink was good. They manipulated the human brain into believing that everyone else was already obsessed with it. It made the drink feel exclusive, edgy, and mysterious. The strategy worked like absolute clockwork. Within weeks, British youth went completely feral trying to find this mysterious drink. Club owners and grocery stores were flooded with demands for Red Bull. People started buying it by the case, not even caring about the weird taste, simply because they wanted to feel like they were part of the trend. That one brilliant, dirty trash can campaign launched Red Bull into a global phenomenon. Today, Red Bull sells over 11 billion cans every single year, controls the global energy drink market, and owns multiple Formula One teams and football clubs. All because one guy realized that sometimes, the quickest way to the consumer's wallet isn't through a fancy, expensive commercial. It's through the garbage can on the street corner. So remember, the next time you have an idea that everyone calls completely stupid, garbage, or crazy, just remember Dietrich Mateschitz. Your idea might actually be garbage, but with the right packaging, that garbage can make you a billionaire.